inaugural remarks. はじめに、駐日インド大使、シビ・ジョージ閣下より開会挨拶をいただきます。失礼いたしました。少々お待ちくださいませ。We will start the event shortly. Please wait for a while. Now, may I invite His Excellency, Mr. Shibi George, Ambassador of India to Japan, to give inaugural remarks. はじめに、駐日インド大使、シビ・ジョージ閣下より開会挨拶をいただきます。
Good afternoon, everybody. Sri V. Ananthanageshwaram, Chief Economic Advisor to Government of India. Mr. Venkadeshan, our partner and tax lead, KPMG. Mr. Himanshu Tiwari, partner, Customs and Trade, KPMG. Ms. Debyani Chakravarti, Minister Economic and Commerce of the Mission, my colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to address you today as we have assembled here to discuss the evolving landscape of India's economic policies and its impact on global trade and investment, particularly in strengthening India-Japan economic relations. I am particularly happy that we have Sri V. Ananthanageshwaram, Chief Economic Advisor, who has joined us online today. And we also have KPMG as our partner participating in this important event. The recently announced Union Budget 2025-26 serves as a transformative roadmap, not just for India's domestic economy, but for its role as a pivotal player in the global economic ecosystem. The total budget allocation stands at $610 billion, a significant commitment towards sustained economic growth and development. Notably, $132 billion has been earmarked for capital expenditure in infrastructure reinforcing India's commitment to world-class urban development, transportation, and connectivity. India today stands at the cusp of a new era, one defined by rapid industrialization, innovation-driven economic policies, and an unwavering commitment to fiscal prudence. The Viksit Bharat 2047 vision encapsulates India's aspirations to become a developed nation within the next 2 decades. This budget reaffirms our commitment to fostering a resilient economy built on the principles of sustainability, digital transformation, and inclusive development. For Japanese investors and businesses, this marks a significant opportunity. The policy thrust on manufacturing, infrastructure, technology, and green energy aligns closely with Japan's expertise and strategic priorities. With a focus on boosting domestic production through initiatives like the National Manufacturing Mission, this budget empowering over 1 crore MSMEs, which contribute to 45% of total exports from India. The government was created a robust framework for foreign direct investment and technological collaborations. Dear friends, India-Japan partnership has long been built on the pillars of mutual trust, shared strategic interests, and economic cooperation. Japan is already among the top foreign investors in India, with Japanese companies playing an instrumental role in infrastructure, automobile manufacturing, and technological innovation in India. This budget enhances avenues for further Japanese participation in areas such as infrastructure and smart cities, manufacturing and industrial growth, green energy and sustainability, technology and digital economy, health and education. And in each of these, we see Japan as a partner. When we talk about India's Amritkal, a journey towards becoming a developed country, Japan is one of the most reliable partners. India is a land of opportunities today, 1 billion opportunities. It is the fastest growing large economy in the world. It's very important that the Japanese companies make use of, avail this opportunity that India offers. The fastest growing large economy, 5th largest economy, and of course Japan, the 3rd largest economy. The potential is huge. When we look at India-Japan business relationship, we know that there are 1,500 Japanese companies in India. These are 1,500 success stories, each one of them. We know Suzuki, which came to India 40 years ago, transformed India's automobile sector, but the company also got transformed. Today, India Suzuki is much bigger than Suzuki Japan, and it continues to grow. This is a success story, and this is the success story that got replicated in many other companies which function from Japanese companies in India. But 1,500 is not enough. And my target is to make it 15,000 Japanese companies in India. Come and avail the opportunity that India offers. And we also mentioned about SMEs. My target this year is to reach out to 100,000 SMEs in Japan. This goes very well with the regional revitalization program that the government of Japan is working on. Many of the SMEs are in the cities, in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, in the prefectures. And I'm very happy that in the last 2 years, I had a great opportunity to engage very closely with every prefecture. Visited all 47 prefectures, at least organized one business event with each of the prefectures. Now we are reaching out to the Tier 3 cities. That is where the SMEs are, the chambers are. We are ready to work with each of these small and medium scale companies to work towards building a resilient supply chain in India, in which India is an important player and partner, building up an important ecosystem so that we can grow together for the benefit of our two countries. It's a win-win situation, and I'm very happy that this budget in particular help us build that ecosystem. Once again, I congratulate everyone for taking the initiative in organizing this event. I thank again Sri Ananda Nageshwaram, Chief Economic Advisor, and also KPMG for their support and participation today. Once again, thank you and good evening.
Thank you, sir, for the remark. Next, I would like to invite Mr. V. Ananta Nageswaran, Chief Economic Advisor, Government of India, to make remarks online. 続きまして、インド政府チーフエコノミックアドバイザー V. アナンタ・ナゲスワラン様にオンラインで講演をいただきます。
Good afternoon, His Excellency the Ambassador of India in Tokyo, other officials of the Indian Embassy, dignitaries, guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am very happy to be able to given this opportunity to share my thoughts on the budget that the Honorable Finance Minister of India unveiled on February 1st, 2025 for the new financial year 25-26. So the implementation of the budget is another 6 weeks away. The budget was a landmark one, continuing not just for the fact that the Honorable Finance Minister of India was presenting her 8th consecutive budget, but for the fact that it took into account the global realities and domestic circumstances in India. The budget was a nudge to Indian domestic demand. Urban consumption in India had slowed, and this is on account of temporary cyclical factors, but also because of structural developments in the hiring and compensation practices of business post-COVID. In fact, if one read the article in the Financial Times a couple of days ago on the shrinking middle class in Indonesia, there are many parallels to the situation in other parts of the emerging economy, that post-COVID hiring and compensation practices have a big role to play in the slowing urban consumption. The government of India, apart from working with the Indian industry to deal with the situation so that the strong profitability growth of Indian businesses translates into hiring and compensation, is also used the budget and the tax policy change on income tax to put more disposable income in the hands of the Indian households. It not only gives a great visibility to domestic demand, improves sentiment in Indian households, but indirectly it also acts as a nudge to private sector investment or capital formation. So that is a very important feature of the budget for 25-26 presented on February 1st by the Honorable Finance Minister. At the same time, some people think that the government of India had chosen to provide the direct income tax relief for households rather than spending its budget on capital expenditure, on public investment, as it has done in the last several years. That is not quite true because the numbers speak for themselves. First of all, the government of India's direct spending on capital expenditure will be 11.2 trillion rupees for the next financial year compared to 11.1 trillion rupees budgeted for this financial year. overall public sector capital expenditure, which includes the public sector enterprises, that is enterprises in which the government of India has a dominant majority shareholding. If you include that, that will be 15.5 trillion rupees in the next financial year, compared to a budgeted estimate of 14.8 trillion rupees for the current financial year. If we include on top of this the grant given by the union government for capital assets to states, then we are looking at 19.8 trillion rupees in capital expenditure compared to 18.7 trillion rupees budgeted for the current financial year, and that's an increase of about 6.5%. 19.8 trillion rupees or 20 trillion rupees on a GDP of the size of about 360 trillion rupees is almost 5.5% of GDP, which is coming from the public sector alone. It's a very big commitment to increasing investments in India's infrastructure and raising the potential growth rate of the Indian economy. Apart from this middle class tax relief, which is a nudge to private sector capital formation, and what I call the public sector capital formation, the figures for which I just quoted a minute ago, the government also has invested in agriculture as an engine of growth. A new program covering 100 districts across the country in partnership with states will be implemented. A new scheme to ensure crop diversification and value agriculture. The government also launched a efficiency mission, oils and pulses, in which India has a deficit because India imports edible oil. The second engine of growth, or the third engine of growth after capital formation and agriculture, is domestic manufacturing and micro, small and medium enterprises. In the budget, the government has announced the formation of a national manufacturing mission, and the government has increased the thresholds for micro, small and medium enterprises so that they don't have to be afraid of growth, which will deny them the fiscal and other interest rate concessions they enjoy. Now they can enjoy these concessions even if they grow, because the thresholds have been increased. There is enhancement in the credit guarantee cover for micro, small and medium enterprises, which means banks will be unafraid to lend to them. And even 2 days before the budget, the government announced a mutual guarantee scheme for manufacturing-centric small and medium enterprises to invest about 1 billion rupees with 60% get. 100 crores in Indian rupee terms can be granted by financial institutions with 60% credit guarantee available. So this could be a very transformative initiative for boosting manufacturing in the country. From a medium-term growth perspective, the budget has been very deliberate and conscious in strengthening India's energy security. The proposed amendments to the Atomic Energy Act and Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act are transformative, because renewable energy cannot be just solar and wind, because they both have problems of intermittency, which imposes a lot of burden on grid, raising the cost of electricity generated and burdening households and businesses, as we are seeing across many parts of Europe today. So nuclear power has to be an important component of the transition from fossil fuels, and India's budget takes a great leap forward in that respect. the government also announced a target for nuclear power generation of 100 gigawatts by 2030. There is a clear commitment to operationalizing 5 small modular nuclear reactors by 2033. There was removal of basic customs duty on several critical minerals, a new policy on the recovery of minerals from tailings, scrapping the basic customs duty on the scrap of lithium-ion batteries, exempting from customs duty 35 additional capital goods for electric vehicle battery manufacturing, and the National Manufacturing Mission, which I spoke about earlier, also covers clean tech manufacturing, including grid-scale batteries, solar photovoltaic cells, and EV batteries as well. With respect to employment generation, apart from boosting capital formation, which is very important for employment generation directly, the government announced schemes for footwear, leather, two important areas of labor-intensive manufacturing. There was a policy announcement to make India a global hub for toy making. There were quite a few schemes announced in terms of boosting the tourism sector, which is also labor-intensive in nature. Above all, the government announced the formation of a high-level committee on regulatory reforms, which will deregulate, simplify rules, regulations, and compliances, such that the fixed cost of doing business will come down, giving room for entrepreneurs and businesses to hire more people. With respect to education and skilling, the government announced several schemes, including a new Center of Excellence in Artificial Intelligence for Education, expansion of medical education, and expanding the capacity in the Indian Institutes of Technology. There will be 50,000 innovation tinkering laboratories in schools to create the scientific bent of mind in children. And there will be broadband connectivity to government schools. And above all, there is emphasis on exports and foreign direct investment with the commitment to re-examine bilateral investment treaties, which is what many foreign investors want. The government has promised to examine the bilateral investment treaty template and make it more investor friendly. And the government also announced an increase in the FDI limit in the insurance sector from 74 to 100%. So in summary, this budget consolidates India's faster growth among G20 countries of the last 3 years, provides a platform for sustaining the growth rate into 2030, has the potential to raise the growth rate of the Indian economy by focusing on medium-term priorities such as energy security, education and skilling, deregulation and employment generation, including focus on nuclear energy, which is likely to be transformative. And there is a clear emphasis on encouraging and boosting foreign direct investment with a view to reviewing the bilateral investment treaties, and above all, supporting domestic demand when everybody in the world today is re-examining foreign trade with new restrictions coming. India is signaling that it is an economy built on the strength of domestic demand by giving households a significant tax break and boosting capital formation in the private sector, apart from continuing with public sector capital formation. So in that sense, the budget continues the tradition of fiscal prudence, long-term investing, raising the quality of fiscal spending, and sustaining India's growth performance, which has seen it emerge as the 5th largest economy on its way to becoming the 3rd largest in the next 2 to 3 years, and in the process becoming a $5 trillion economy. So India as a market will therefore continue to provide profitable investment opportunities for both foreign direct investors and portfolio investors. Thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Back to you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Devjani Chakrabarti, Minister, Economic and and Commerce, Embassy of India, Tokyo, to make a presentation on key announcement on Indian budget fiscal year 2025 to 26. 続きまして、在日インド大使館経済商務担当講師、デブジャニ・チャクラバルティ講師より、2025-26年度インド予算に関する主要発表と題したご講演をいただきます。
Good evening, everybody. His Excellency Ambassador of India to Japan, Mr. C.B. George, Mr. V. Ananta Nageshwaran, Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, Mr. Venkateshwaran R., Partner and Tax Lead KPMG, Mr. Himanshu Tiwari, Partner Customs and Trade KPMG, and all friends who are present in the audience today. My job has been made easy by the Chief Economic Advisor, and I don't think I can say better than how he has summarized and put forth the salient points of the Union Budget FY 25-26. I would like to consolidate on what he has already mentioned. So, Union Budget 25-26 is a building block in the direction of taking India to the goal of Vikasit Bharat, the goal of becoming a 32 trillion economy by 2047 when we celebrate our 100 years of independence. This budget, as the Chief Economic Advisor has rightly pointed out, is a correct balance between promoting economic growth, physical consolidation, social well-being with reforms across key sectors, as you can see on the screen. Next. These are our growth engines, agriculture, MSME, investments, and exports. Next. Regarding growth engine or development engine number 1, that is agriculture. In India, as per the Economic Survey of 2025, agriculture constitutes around 16% of the GDP, but it supports almost half of the Indian population. So there is a scope to do a lot in this sector, and providing credit to our farmers is the biggest service we can render for people who give us food security. Under Atmanirbhar Bharat emblem, there has been a special emphasis on providing impetus to pulses. In fact, this year we are going to launch 6-year mission with special focus on pulses and developing climate resilient seeds. This is a step towards food security. Next. Supporting the MSMEs, as has been already mentioned, 45% of our exports are from MSMEs, and they are basically our employment generation sector. Providing easy credit to them has been one of the goals of this budget. Therefore, they have been given access to customized credit cards, and for the first time, entrepreneurs, especially belonging to the disadvantaged category and women, there has been a special loan which has been provided to them, as you can see on the screen. So basically, the manufacturing mission is going to ensure that there is modern technology available, quality of products are improved, therefore our exports can go up, and there is a special focus on clean tech manufacturing. And in this sector, I believe we can have a lot of synergy with Japan. Next. As has been already mentioned, India has a demographic dividend, and for the next 20-25 years, it is our people who are going to drive the growth. Therefore, Atal Tinkering Labs, that is 50,000 labs in government schools, investment in broadband connectivity, which is basically the backbone for the digital public infrastructure, digital form of Indian language books, centers for excellence, expansion in the capacity of Indian Institute of Technology, Center for Excellence in Artificial Intelligence, and also welfare for online platform workers has been given a special focus. Next. As has been mentioned already, India has 29 states, and there is a proper mechanism for devolution of resources to the states. In order to support infrastructure growth in the states, there is an outlay of 17.3 billion USD, which is basically a 50-year interest-free loan given to the states for capital expenditure. Then the Clean Water Mission has been extended up to 2028. I would like you to focus on asset monetization plan of 2025-30. Basically, the last 10 years, the exponential growth in the infrastructure, especially roads, ports, railways, and the logistic efficiency that this growth has brought is basically providing the ready platform for asset monetization. In fact, the budget has kept a target of 115.4 billion USD, which is basically going to be plowed back into creating new projects. Then there is Urban Challenge Fund, which is of about 15 billion, where smart cities will be implemented. And here I believe we have a lot of synergy with Japan, especially to create, to redevelop cities, waste management, green energy. In these areas, a lot of work can be done. Next. I would like you to look at this Maritime Development Fund, which is basically a new corpus of 2.88 billion USD for long-term financing, with up to 49% contribution being given by government. This will actually give a lot of impetus to logistics. In fact, later in the slides, I will also say how the shipping sector is also going to be transformed, and there will be some changes, and shipbuilding is going to be given an infrastructure status. As has been already mentioned, the nuclear energy mission for Viksit Bharat is something new, basically for grid stability and also to remove any kind of anomaly with respect to other sources of renewable power. This has been given new impetus and emphasis in this budget. Next is Udan. Udan means we are increasing the number of airports in our country to about 120 new destinations, which will carry 40 million passengers. We already have 149 airports operational and functioning in India. Thereafter, in research and development, there has been a lot of impetus. A fund allocation of 2.31 billion USD has been made. Medical education has been given more emphasis. Tourism as a service sector has a huge potential. In fact, we have a lot to learn from Japan. Japan, how you have managed and handled tourism in the last 1-2 years, and actually post-COVID, how tourism has revived your economy. India will also basically adopt same methods, develop tourist destinations and ancillary infrastructure, and make ease of travel so that more visitors can come to India. Next. For any economy to make a quantum leap, we have to concentrate on exports. Therefore, export promotion mission has been given a special impetus. In fact, for MSMEs, there has been a lot of support which will be provided to tackle with non-tariff measures or barriers. In fact, there is Bharat Trade Net for international trade, which is set up as a unified platform for trade documentation and financing solutions. As you already must be knowing, India has the largest number of global capability centers in the world, 1,800 as we sit now. In fact, there will be a national framework for this global capability centers so that more of them are promoted in the tier 2 cities where there is Indian talent available. Warehousing facility is a natural outcome of air cargo, and as there is a modal shift for movement of goods, warehousing facilities will have a place in the scheme of things in India. Next. To achieve a growth of, let us say, 8 to 9% in the next 20 years, we need finance. Therefore, financial sector reforms are important. Grameen Credit Score. This is basically for the self-help groups which are formed in the rural and urban areas, for them to avail cheap credit. There is something called Partial Credit Enhancements Facility for corporate bonds for infrastructure. As you have already learned from the CEA, the FDI limit in the insurance sector has been raised to 100%. There is a Financial Stability and Development Council which has been appointed, which is actually headed by our finance minister. She makes sure that there is regulatory coherence between all our regulators like Reserve Bank of India, SEBI, IRDA, IBBI, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. You will be happy to know that there is a Jan Vishwas bill which is tabled in Parliament, which will decriminalize 100 more provisions. Next. There is a lot of impetus in the indirect taxation sector. Most of it has been mentioned by the CEA. You can read it from the slide, and more will come from our KPMG partners. It'll suffice to mention here that the customs duty or the ICE gate facility which is available, that has been streamlined over the years, and now a lot of amendments have also been done to extend timelines so that compliances are easy. You may focus on the exemptions which are being provided to the maintenance, repair, and overall industry, especially for shipbuilding and ships for braking. In fact, the extension of time limit for export of railway goods is also a very welcome step. A lot of impetus has been given on removing customs duty on life-saving medicines, as you can see on the screen. Next. There are direct tax proposals also, which are going to do a world of good, and more will be discussed by the KPMG partners. But I would like to focus on the specific benefits which will be provided to ship leasing units, insurance offices, and treasury centers of global companies, which will be set up in the International Financial Service Center or GIFT City in Gujarat. In fact, certainty of taxation for Category 1 and Category 2 alternative investment funds, those which invest in non-traditional asset classes like real estate, commodities, and hedge funds, will get special dispensation. Next. This is just a diagrammatic representation of how we collect our taxes and how it is spent. The interest payments are about 20% of our corpus, and with time and with the growth in our economy, this will come down. Next. Next. Regarding sectoral allocation, defense is becoming more and more important. The capital expenditure has been steady and it has increased. In fact, a lot of impetus is being given on research and development, and there will be production of defense equipments in India, both for domestic use as well as for exports. To that effect, a lot of reforms are being undertaken, and there are defense corridors or industrial corridors being developed in India. Next. Healthcare is a very important sector. Healthy population will be able to work better. Therefore, it has been the endeavor of our government to ensure that the out-of-pocket spending of the people are decreased. Hence, Ayushman Bharat, which is the largest public insurance scheme in the world, has been implemented. Again, a corpus of 484.45 million has been provided to extend Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Basically, it's an insurance cover to the vulnerable population of the country, so that out-of-pocket expenditure is reduced. In fact, over the years, it has, over 10 years, let us say, it has declined from 62% to 39%. Cancer care expansion facilities, medical education, as has already been mentioned, number of seats have increased. Medical tourism is a very important and booming sector in India. In fact, we get a lot of patients from Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia. That sector is also growing up. In fact, this insurance scheme is also extended to the gig workers. Almost 10 million will be targeted and covered. Next. Agriculture has already been mentioned, that we will be working towards self-sufficiency and food security. There is going to be a Makhana board for Bihar. This is foxnut. India is the largest producer of foxnut in the world. I think it is known as Hasunomi in Japanese. And there will be also support for cotton farmers to increase their income, which is a very important cash crop. Next. Let me come back to shipping and maritime. So I have already mentioned about the Maritime Development Fund, but I would also like to mention that shipbuilding policy overall is taking place now as we speak. The bills will be tabled in the monsoon session. Especially, there will be a revamped shipbuilding financial assistance policy, extending custom duty exemption on raw materials for 10 years or more. Ship breaking credit note policy is also on the anvil. Infrastructure status will be given for vessels. Larger vessels will be granted infrastructure status. Shipping clusters. In fact, there is a plan to increase India's global share, which is very less right now, 0.06%, to India becoming top 5 by 2047. Here, I believe there is a lot of synergy available with Japan. Next. Education, I will not labor on this. Already the Chief Economic Advisor has told you that we have been emphasizing on quality education, upskilling, and with Japan, there has been a very active dialogue for skill mobility. And I believe all these steps which have been taken in the budget will also help that endeavor. Next. This is a snapshot of basically the funds to support our MSME, urban development, energy and sustainability, and capital expenditure. There is mostly the first three are covered by my speakers before me, but I would just like to labor on capital expenditure. Here, for the past 3 years, capital expenditure, core capital expenditure has been around 3% of the GDP. And this infrastructure spending actually amplifies the productivity. In fact, it is said that every rupee that we spend has a potential to generate 2.5 to 4.5 times that amount in an economic activity. So, public expenditure in infrastructure gives a force multiplier effect to the economy. In fact, while we earmark money to spend on infrastructure, we also take care of our fiscal deficit target, which is kept at 4.4% for FY26. In fact, as a step towards consolidation, fiscal consolidation, there is an active attempt to reduce debt to GDP ratio to around 50% by 2031. Now it is around 55 to 57%. So basically, while we look at economic growth, we also ensure that there is fiscal consolidation. Next. This is a snapshot slide with major items where expenditure has been earmarked for all of you to see. In fact, our market borrowings have been kept at 14.8 lakh crores, which is basically going to be covered by borrowings from internal and external borrowings, and about 22% will be covered or funded by small savings. Next. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your presentation. Next, I would like to request Mr. Venkatesh R., Partner and Tax Lead, India-Japan Corridor, KPMG India, and Mr. Himanshu Tewari, Partner, Customs and Trade, KPMG India, to make a presentation on key announcements covering direct tax, customs and tariff, policy and regulation with respect to business. 続きまして、KPMG インディアパートナー兼インド日本コリドー税制リーダー、ベンカテーシュ R 様および KPMG インディア税関貿易パートナー、ヒマンシュテワリ様より、直接税、間接ビジネスに関する政策と規制についての主要発表と題したご講演をいただきます。
Thank you. His Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, Government of India to Japan, distinguished dignitaries, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Very good afternoon to all of you. So, any tax proposals are aligned to the economic growth. So, if you look at India, in the last 10 years, India has grown on an average of about 7%. And the next 10 years, we are going to grow at a much faster pace. So we are already fifth largest economy in the world. And by 2028, the projection is we will be the third largest economy in the world. So to this growth trajectory of which India has projected, the tax proposals have to be aligned to that. So to that extent, the Honorable Finance Minister have made a couple of proposals in the tax, which has a good impact on the businesses. Primarily to say no change in any new policy. There's no new policy introduced. New taxes are not introduced because the current tax regime is so efficient. From a tax perspective, there is no new policy introduced. What has happened is all the bottlenecks in the tax laws have been removed. So we will go one by one and see slowly as to what are the important bottlenecks that affect businesses that has been proposed to eliminate in the budget. Next. I think this has been covered by the economic advisor. Next. Yeah. So if you look at the budget proposals that has been proposed by the Honorable Finance Minister, the foreign direct investments, almost to all sectors, it has been 100% liberalized. Non-resident foreign companies can invest in India freely without any approval. Insurance was one of the very few last sectors which had certain restrictions. Up to 74% foreign investors can come, and you should have a domestic partner to the extent of 26%. Now that also has been eliminated, and entire 100% can be invested by the foreign investors. So Japanese insurance companies can freely come into India, have 100% ownership of the insurance companies in India, and have a good insurance business in India. The second one is there is extension of benefits to sovereign wealth funds and pension funds in the infrastructure assets. So there is tax exemption that has been provided to the sovereign wealth funds till 2025. The finance minister has proposed to extend that to 2030. And these sovereign wealth funds will be investing in the infrastructure assets in the country, which is required for the growth trajectory which the India has projected over the next decade. Then already it was spoken on the bilateral investment treaty. There are a lot of efforts being made to bring certainty and clarity in the tax regime for the foreign investments in India. Given the growth trajectory India's projected, it needs a lot of investments from overseas companies, including Japan. Already negotiations have been completed with a couple of countries, and a good bilateral investment treaty has been entered into. And many countries, including Japan, are in discussion to have a very confident bilateral investment treaty. Tax benefits for startups, they were also lapsing in 25, and given the ecosystem that is being generated in India, it has been extended to another 5 years. All startups needs to be approved by the Department of Industries, which is having specific innovation, new kind of product, new kind of solutions, can approach the Department of Industries for an approval. Based on this, the startups enjoy a tax holiday for certain period. I think that has been extended till 2030. IFSC, the Foreign Investment Services Center in Gujarat, Gift City, I think it was mentioned earlier also that a lot of incentives have been given to, given that India requires a lot of funds for the purpose of growth it is projecting. There is a specific dedicated gift city has been formed where all the financial instruments, fund managers, insurance companies, financial back offices can be set up in that particular region, which gives a tax holiday for 10 years. And that also has been extended till 2030. So all investments made till 2030, you will have a 10-year tax holiday in the IFSC regime. And moving on, next. And a lot of tax certainty procedures have been implemented by the Honorable Finance Minister. One is India is on the growth path for building up a semiconductor ecosystem and electronics ecosystem. So to that extent, the non-residents need not set up a company in India and then go through the rigmarole of compliances and all of that. They can just come inside, do the services, or maintain or build the semiconductor factory there, do technical services, and they will be taxed on a presumptive basis. The effective tax will be much lesser than the usual 10% or 35% if you set up a company. It will be only 8%. So and no compliances. They just have to file a simple return on their income, and they can and they're free to go and then take the balance money and go. The SEP regulations, which was introduced a couple of years back, where foreign companies sell goods or services into India, they were subjected to tax if they breach a certain threshold. There was an anomaly where if products sourced in India or exported were also covered. Now the finance minister has clarified that if products sourced in India are exported out of India, it will not fall within the SEP regulations, and there is no tax implication on that. Transfer pricing was one area where every year there were cumbersome documentation to be maintained, very lengthy documentation to be maintained and submitted to the tax authorities. There were tax audits being done on the transfer pricing area. So now the finance minister said, at the option of the company, if they feel that for a period of once in 3 years, if they do the documentation, that is enough. So it is the choice of the company and not of the choice of the tax department. So if the company chooses that choice, the tax department will accept. Otherwise, your regular year-on-year documentation needs to be maintained. On the personal taxation, as it was told earlier also, up to 12 lakhs, there is no tax in India, up to 1.2 million INR. So which actually has about close to 10% of the income, additional income in the hands of the middle class. So that is an area where you can concentrate to see there's a purchasing power is going to increase in India, which is going to give a rolling effect to the economy as well, because every 1 rupee spent generates 3 rupees of economic growth. So that's an important area to watch for in the coming days. Next. So finance minister in her speech mentioned that India is going to be trust first and scrutiny later. So to that endeavor, the proposals that has been made also is more taxpayer friendly, and India is going to trust the taxpayer much more, and scrutiny is going to be by way of exception. Certain examples of the various proposals or changes that has been made in the law is voluntary compliance. The updated tax return was earlier can be filed only up to 2 years. Now you can file the updated tax return in 4 years, and 99% of the returns filed are under self-assessment and self-attestation. So you will not be picked up for scrutiny if your returns are properly done and then filed. And faster processing of returns. The technology has been embedded into the IT framework, the tax office framework, including the data analytics. So once you file the return, you will get a summary assessment in a day or two. And if the refunds, that also comes very, very quickly within a week, or in many cases, not more than a month. So today, the tax office is so efficiently performing that when you file a return, you get a assessment done almost immediately. And the tax audit exemption limits have been continuously, they are raising the bar. It was very small amount, close to 100,000 yen a couple of years back. Today, that has increased to 100 million INR. So up to 100 million INR, no audits, no tax audits to be done, and the companies can manage their business independently without any hassle from the tax office. Next. In addition to the changes proposed by the finance minister on February 1st, the following week, as promised by the finance minister, she announced the new income tax bill, because the current income tax act is already 65 years old, and some of the provisions in the law is so dated that may not be relevant in today's terms. A lot of changes have happened over the period of time. The section has undergone a lot of complications. So in order to simplify the law and to eliminate all unnecessary provisions, the new income tax bill was planned to be introduced. No change in any income tax rate, no change in dates of compliance, no change in any of the withholding tax provisions, what is there currently. The new law simply eliminates the burden of unnecessary provisions and gives more clarity. It gives more tabular formation and computation mechanisms, which was absent in the current law, so that anybody overseas can read the law and understand. Today, the law is more legally oriented, where you need a lawyer to interpret, but this new bill will be more understandable by the global community and will have more clarity. So otherwise, no new provisions introduced, no new policies introduced in the new bill. It's to bring more transparency and clarity and certainty in the law. That's it from my side. Next, I will now invite my colleague Himanshu Tiwari to take you through the customs. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkatesh. His Excellency Ambassador of India in Japan, Mr. Sibi George, Chief Economic Advisor V. Anant Nageshwaran sir, Honorable Minister Madam Devjani Chakravarti, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. Over the last 1 hour, a clear messaging has come on the macroeconomic front as to how India is performing and what is the focus. My colleague Venkat spoke about what is happening at enterprise level taxation and personal taxation level. It will be important for me to keep the message drilling further at the microeconomic level. The customs and trade as a subject is a microeconomic transaction level taxation, which applies on products. And I'll try and spend next 3 minutes or so in delivering at the headline level what is happening in India. Can we move to the next slide, please? India and Japan has a very deep relationship from a trade perspective. Japan supplies around 17 billion worth of goods to India, while India exports around 5 billion worth of goods. The free trade agreement between India and Japan was signed in 2000 and made effective in 2011. It is almost 14 years of this long-term relationship. And I guess India and Japan are poised to take the leap of next level of relationship between the two countries. Just stay there for a minute. Just can we move to the last slide, please? So there are three elements that are impacting the product transactions. The tariff policy. Overall, the government is moving for the finished goods, the duty rates are being increased, while for the intermediate goods and the raw materials, duties are being brought down. This is to encourage, as the Chief Economic Advisor has earlier mentioned, to support manufacturing in India, which is the third growth engine for the country, and also to support national manufacturing mission. The tariff rates are being aligned to encourage manufacturing and deeper value addition in India. The trade policy is aligned to the tariff policy, where at the product level, there are regulatory interventions that are being proposed so that the value added manufacturing starts to shift towards India and the businesses start evaluating. India is very keen to leverage on the current global geopolitics to see that how the current geopolitics can be leveraged for deepening value-added manufacturing in India. And the third element of the policy is the industrial policy, which include phased manufacturing program, which includes production link incentive scheme. These are the incentives for increased manufacturing in India. At the intersection of these three focus areas lies product by product business planning. That if there is a sunrise, if the product lies in the sunrise sector of the industry, government is giving all the regulatory environment to increase that manufacturing and capturing of that value addition in India, which is ultimately directed towards India's $10 trillion economic ambition. Semiconductor, toys, footwear, all of it, the chief economic advisor also spoke about. Moving to the next slide, please. This slide, the message is just being drilled down. We spoke about the raw materials and intermediate goods being duties being lowered. The whole of the screen effectively in this budget, this screen captures on key products which are in focus, how the duty rates are being reduced, including solar panels, including the critical mineral, including the lithium-ion battery used in EV manufacturing, etc. One of the important areas in the current geopolitics globally, it is not only in India that the trade policy is evolving, but globally the trade policy is evolving and is being impacted by the emerging geopolitics, emerging change in leadership in the major economies in India. And this is the first time, I have spent 30 years in trade space. This is the first time that we see that head of the states are talking about trade and tariffs, and we think that this is a transformative period. Last 30 years, World Trade Organization has been driving and giving a framework for trade policies, and the individual national governments have been adopting it, taking into focus the points that are relevant for their economic growth. Going forward, the next 2 decades seems to be very different. New institutions, the old institutions in new avatars would be coming forward. I guess it will be very important for Japan and India, Japan being the 3rd largest economy, India being the 5th largest economy, to come together and take this opportunity. Japan has a very strong intellectual property base. India has a huge market. Can we not leverage it together to drive growth and take leadership in driving growth in the world? Thank you so much for your audience. And we would be here in the networking session for any questions and clarifications after the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation. If you have any questions, you may ask directly to the presenter after this seminar during the networking session. もしご質問がございます方は、このセミナー終了後のネットワーキングセッションで、登壇者の方に直接ご質問くださいませ。We will now conclude the event Beyond the Budget, Unveiling Future of Indian Business in Global Context today. 以上をもちまして、本日のセミナー、インド予算2025グローバルな文脈からインドビジネスの未来を解き明かすを終了といたします。Thank you very much for all the participants to join us today. We will have a networking session with tea at the foyer just outside of this venue from now on. Please join us. この後、ネットワーキングセッションをこの会場を出てすぐのフォアイエで開催いたしますので、皆様ぜひご参加くださいませ。お茶もご用意しております。本日はご参加いただきまして誠にありがとうございました。同時通訳レシーバーをお使いになった方は受付までご返却お願いいたします。If you have used simultaneous interpretation receiver, please make sure to return the receiver to the reception desk. Thank you very much.